Superman from 1978 is an absolute classic that a lot of people will still consider the peak of Superman movies, even beating out the masterpiece that is Superman vs. the Mole Man. It might live up to most of that hype, but it's not perfect. The beginning of this movie stars Marlon Brando, the guy who's mostly known by film students far and wide and nobody else. However, back in the day, Marlon Brando was a really, really big name. Big enough that he could just sit in his trailer all day and still be paid $1 million a day. Anyway, these early parts of the movie contain Superman mostly from baby to young adult. Life being Superman hasn't been established yet. It's only his life leading up to it. This means it doesn't star Christopher Reeve. However, Reeve does voice over the teenager that's playing Clark. These early days aren't too notable, as other than Uncle Ben over here, nobody else really gets plot relevance. They're really just shown to show that Clark's life when he's not Superman sucks, or that it's good, but it's mostly talking about that Clark's life when he's not Superman isn't the best. He's getting bullied, typical 70s, 80s teenager problems. Luckily enough, his life changes for the better as he throws a magic crystal into the snow in the middle of, I think, the North Pole. Don't know how he got there, but it grows the Fortress of Solitude, and after he changes into an adult, he just grows up. I think it's supposed to be time passing, but I like the idea that he just grows up. You know what that means. It's Superman time, baby. The middle bit is where this movie truly shines. Christopher Reeve brings his A game and truly becomes Superman and Clark Kent. He's been talked to death, but the way he portrays the difference between Superman makes you believe that Clark and Superman could be different people. Reeves' performance is absolutely fantastic. Clark is such a lovable dork. The whole movie, by far my favorite part. The way he says, like, golly and gosh throughout the entire movie is so good. Now in this portion of the movie, you meet Superman's newfound pals, Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. Lois Lane is the damsel in distress, and Jimmy Olsen is... we'll get to that. Along with some other unique faces around the Metropolis, from the grizzled editor of the Daily Planet to this one guy who just gets multiple arm cameos throughout the movie. Lois Lane is the biggest character of note here, as she brings the most to the table other than Reeve. Unfortunately, she is plagued by sexism and still stuck in the damsel role, but luckily she brings some nuance to the position because she's more than just a scream. She doesn't have a proper way to show off her skill, but I believe if it wasn't 1978, she could rise above and beyond her damsel position. Luckily enough, she isn't the only damsel because we have Jimmy. Jimmy doesn't really do anything in this movie, but I still love the character. And to prove my love, we'll move on to the reoccurring segment, the Jimmy Olsen Minute, in which I read a comic of Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, which I have back here, and attempt to summarize it in 1 minute. Alright, welcome to the first ever Jimmy Olsen Minute. You've met me at my closet with mirrors, and I am going to talk about, to probably explain what Jimmy Olsen Minute is. It's an unscripted segment where I attempt to explain the plot of a Jimmy Olsen comic in exactly 1 minute. Jimmy Olsen number 162. I can't see the time, but here you go. The front depicts Jimmy looking at a telephone booth where Superman's going in and coming out and he says Superman has changed his secret identity, and it's me. Google clickbait cover. Explain this story. So, Olsen is robbing a bank. Seems wrong, so Superman comes to help him and to catch Jimmy, who's just shot a guard and killed him. And then Jimmy dies. So they go to check on Jimmy in his dentist's office, and Jimmy's like, "That's not me." So Superman finds out that it's not this. There's now two Jimmys, and is confused. We then cut to Lex Luthor, who is currently cloning a Jimmy, and says, "Okay, so he's going to now that he's robbed this priceless artifact that has given me a lot of money. I'm going to get Jimmy to now dress up as Superman and rob a carnival." So he does that, dresses up as Superman, tries to rob a carnival. Jimmy Olsen sees this and is confused. So he goes after the Jimmy and sees him go through the telephone booth and turn into me. That's where the clickbait comes from. Now, Jimmy is being chasing the Jimmy, and the Jimmy gets into a car where a person's like, "Get in the car, go around the other side," hits him with the car, kills the other Jimmy. Then we go to Lex Luthor, and he's like, gonna clone another Jimmy and burn the Declaration of Independence. So then Superman gives him a gorilla hair instead, so he clones a gorilla and is captured. The end. I think I did it. Weird. Well, with that detour out of the way, we're almost done with the best part of this movie, unfortunately. But there's still some greatness left as we are introduced to the main villain and his henchmen, Lex Luthor, and then, it's like Miss. Give me a moment, I need to look this up. Miss Testmacher and Otis. People that I think I should probably know the names of already. Nevertheless, Lex is played by Gene Hackman and plays the role he's given really, really well. But unfortunately, Lex is devolved to mostly a mustache-twirling villain and doesn't have any greater schemes. We don't have President Lex Luthor yet. We're still stuck in his mad scientist era. It's really such a shame because Lex Luthor can be such a more interesting role, but what he's given, Gene crushes it, and is actually kind of funny. And his henchmen are also kind of funny. They're nothing special, but Otis is just like typical bumbling idiot. Miss Testmacher is a woman, I guess. It's the 70s. She didn't get much to do. These villains' plans are, unfortunately, really simple because Lex has not evolved past evil scientist yet. Their plan is simply to get their hands on kryptonite so they can beat Superman and then destroy the west coast of the US so then they can buy up the useless real estate that's just past the west coast of the US and make a lot of money. It's a little boring. This brings us to the final chapter, which isn't my favorite as well. The ending kinda sucks. Don't take that too harshly, because even with its faults, this movie is still a classic. The ending may not be the best, but the charm in the middle carries the weight of the movie on its back. That being said, the ending is probably the most famous part of the movie, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So, starting this epilogue, Lex Luthor and his stooges come into possession of the kryptonite and are successfully able to reprogram a missile. Or, not really successfully, but they have two go-arounds at it as the Three Stooges are not perfect. But it all goes his way and he's able to get in contact with Superman because, I don't know, Superman is like super healing, so he can use like a dog whistle collar and it still works. It's a little weird. Now that Superman, he confronts Lex Luthor and la-di-da, kryptonite, typical Superman stuff, falls on the ground, "Oh, please don't do this, I'm in severe pain," stuff like that. Yeah, something about missiles getting fired, Superman gets out of it, Superman saves everyone, the end. You know, typical Superman. Oh. Superman does not save everyone, as Lois Lane dies a absolutely gruesome and horrifying death. Like, really, really horrifying. I'm surprised that it was allowed in this movie. And, obviously, Superman is very sad that Lois Lane has just died. So, rather than mourning her death, he does what a normal guy would do. He flies around the world really, 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 really fast to turn the axis of the Earth the opposite direction, allowing for time to reverse. bring Lois Lane back to life so then he can save her this time. I do truly believe this movie still lives up to its classic status. It may be a little boring in the beginning, but the ending is kind of funny. But from the movie's standpoint, where it's trying to take itself really seriously, it isn't great. Clark Kent is honestly a more fun character than Superman because Superman's kind of stuck to the perfect guy kind of role, while Clark Kent's allowed to have more flaws. But Superman is still good. Christopher Reeve does a really, really good job. That's why I believe Superman 79 is still a classic. So, with that out of the way, what tier does this movie fit into? I truly believe this is a great movie, even though it has its faults. It probably isn't as great as the Batman movie we already covered, so I'll put it in like a B tier, I think. So why not meet me next time as I return to this franchise? Because the next one is called Superman Returns, and it's dumb. I shouldn't end it on that joke.